Hello everyone, you are welcome to Web Chrony Online YouTube channel. Today we begin our journey in HTML. HTML is a markup language that is used to create web elements. In today's video, we will take a look at the structure of an HTML file and we will also take a look at the text element. So without wasting much time, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel before we continue, and if you haven't, click on the subscribe button to do so now. Leave a like on this video if you learned a thing or two, and with that being said, let's begin. Alright guys, so I have my Visual Studio Code editor opened. If you don't have Visual Studio Code editor downloaded and installed on your machine, I have a video that will guide you to achieve this goal. Go ahead and check it out, download and install it, and then come back to this lesson. If you already have downloaded and installed Visual Studio Code, make sure it is opened. Once your Visual Studio Code is opened, you can move your cursor to this icon and click to open the Explorer. Once the Explorer is open, we can click on this button that says Open Folder. What we are going to do is that we are going to have a folder where we will keep our HTML files. So I created a folder called HTML and CSS. I will select that folder and it will be opened in my Visual Studio Code. Once the folder is opened, I can hover on it so that these icons will appear. Once these icons appear, I can use the first one to create a new file, the second one to create a subfolder in the main folder, the third one to refresh my folder or Explorer, and I can use the last one to collapse subfolders that are opened in the main folder. So I'll create my first HTML file and I will call it index. So I'll click on the first icon and then give it a name, index. An HTML file should be stored in the HTML file extension, so I will add my .html and then hit enter. Now I have created an HTML file. Visual Studio Code comes with a whole lot of interesting features, and one of them is called the Emmet abbreviation. What the Emmet abbreviation does is that it makes coding very easy and simple. You just have to type some few characters and it will pre-populate so many things for you, saving you a couple of time. And in an HTML file, the first one that we are going to do is to type the exclamation mark. So go ahead and type the exclamation mark, and once you type the exclamation mark, you will see these two options. Alright, when you hit enter on the first one, everything you are seeing here will be displayed in your HTML file. If you type and it doesn't show up, suppose you type and nothing came, you can hit Ctrl space and it will come, and once it comes, you hit enter. This is the basic structure of an HTML file. We will take our time to go through it one after the other. After that, I will show you a picture of an HTML element, and we will finalize this video by learning about the text elements. Alright guys, so looking at the structure of this HTML, the first one has what we call the doc type, and it has an attribute called HTML. This line of code informs the browser about the type of document it is about to display, and the HTML tells the browser that, look, this document is an HTML file and it contains web elements. This is very important so that the browser will know how to display certain things based on the tags that we use. Don't worry, you will get to understand what tags means in a moment. The second line of code is called the HTML element, and inside the HTML element we have an attribute called lang. The lang is a short form of language, and its value has been set to EN, which is also a short form of English. This tells the browser that this HTML file you are about to display has the English language as its major language. Alright, if you wish to write in French, then you have to change the EN to FR. If you want to write in Russian, you have to change it to RU. If you want to write in Chinese, you change it to CH. Alright, don't also forget that we have the opening HTML tag and then the closing HTML tag. Anything that you write inside the HTML tag is what the browser will display, but not everything though, because some will be displayed and some will not be displayed depending on where you write them. So inside the HTML element, we have what we call the head element, and inside the head element there are some more elements. For example, we have two meta tags here. The first meta tag has an attribute called char set, which is a short form of character set, and its value has been set to UTF-8. This informs the browser that this web page that you are about to display is using the UTF-8 character encoding. Then the second one has an attribute called name, and its value has been set to viewport. This deals with the dimensions of the screen upon which this HTML file will be displayed. So this part is very important, especially when the web page will be opened or accessed on different screen sizes. And when you look at the content, the initial weight has been set to the device weight. What it means is that if you are using a bigger screen, take all the screen. If you are using a smaller screen, take all the screen. Alright, we can set it to an actual weight and it will work alright. But if you want to create an HTML file that can be opened on different screen sizes without any big deal, then you have to set it to the device weight. Then the initial scale talks about the zooming. You can set its value between 1 and 100. When you set it to 1, it means you should display it normally, just the normal display. And if you set it to 100, it means that you should zoom the content in this web page by 100. Okay, we can add more meta tags. Okay, so for example, I can have a new meta tag. Just type meta, and then I will have an attribute called name, and I will set it to description, and then I will give it a content, and the content says this is a website created by WebCrony Online. Okay, so this meta tag gives some more information about the HTML file the browser will be displaying, and this is very important for search engines. Suppose you promote, let's say, music, and you have a web page that displays a particular song. You can use the meta tag to give a description so that search engines can find your web page and then rank it high. Is that okay? The content of the title will display in the title bar of the web page. Okay, so let me say first website. Then I'll come into the body tag. Inside the body tag is where the actual web elements are created. Anything that is written inside the body tag is considered as a web element. So that is where we have our text, images, audio, video, maps, and what have you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say this is my first website. Alright, so once I finish with everything, you just have to make sure you save it. And as you can see, it has been properly styled because we have Prettier here, and what Prettier does is that anytime you type your code and save it, it will structure it nicely and make it more readable. Okay, now it is time for us to see what we have here, and to do that we have to go live. If you don't have this go live, move your cursor to this extension, and once the extension is open, type live server, and this is how the live server looks like. Make sure you click on the install to install the live server so that you can also go live to preview your HTML file. So I'll go ahead and click on the go live so that it will open my HTML file in a browser. And when you take a look at this file that has been opened, the text that I wrote inside the title tag in the head tag is showing here. Alright, if I come here and then change it, let's say website recreated, and then I save it and then come back here, you see that everything has been updated. So I have my first website recreated, and anything that I write in the body is now showing here. All right, so this is where the title shows, and this is where the body shows. All right guys, so I have an image here that will help us to understand what an HTML element is. An HTML element has an opening tag, a content, and a closing tag. Before we continue, let it be known that not all HTML elements have content and closing tag. Some of them are self-closing tags, and we will get to know some of them in the near future. But because today we will be talking about text element, text element always have an opening tag, a content, and a closing tag. So the opening tag will have what we call the tag name, and in this case the tag name is h1, and the closing tag will have a / and the tag name. So as you can see, we have / h1 here. Now inside the opening tag of an HTML element, we can have what we call attributes. So as you can see here, we have an attribute, and an attribute mostly has an attribute name and an attribute value or values. So in this case, we have an attribute called class, and its value has been set to primary. We can have more attribute values, just separate them with a white space, and we can also have more attribute, just separate each attribute with a white space. So as time goes on, we will get to know some of these other attributes that can be used in an HTML element. Alright, I hope this explanation gives you a head start on what an HTML element is. Now let's go ahead and create some text element. Alright guys, so now that we know what an HTML element is, we can create some text element. But before we do so, I would like us to do some configuration that will help us to avoid saving every time. We have a functionality called autosave, where the code will be saving itself automatically. So move your cursor to the file menu and then make sure autosave is checked. Once autosave is checked, anytime you write our code, it will be saved on its own and it will preview on the fly. Okay, great. There are 3 classes of text elements. We have headings, paragraph, and then subtext. Now with the heading, let's think about it this way. Suppose you are a blogger and you have an article on your website. You can use the heading element to display the title of the article, or you can use it to lay certain emphasis, and they all help in improving your search engine ranking. Okay, and in HTML, to have a heading, we use the heading tag. In fact, there are 6 heading tags in HTML. We have the h1, h2 up to h6. So let's create some heading. So I'll create my h1 and then I'll say this is heading 1. And since we are on autosave, we don't have to do anything, we just have to preview what we have here. As a matter of fact, let me try and then split my screen into 2, one to display the browser and the other to display the code editor. So I'll bring this here and this one here. Okay, I can also go ahead and collapse this one so that I will have enough space to do my thing. Okay, so I have my first h1 element. Let me go ahead and create a second one, which will be h2, and I say this is heading 2. Alright, so as you can see, the browser has default styles for HTML elements. So when you have text in an h1 tag it is displayed bold and quite large. And when you have text in H2 element or tag, it will display bold, but the size or the font size is quite small by comparison. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create for heading 3. Say this is heading 3. Then I'll also have heading 4. This is heading 4. I'll have heading 5. This is heading 5, and the last one is heading 6. So H6. I'll say this is heading 6. Alright, so these are the 6 heading tags or elements that we have in HTML. Now let's move on to the paragraph. To have a paragraph in an HTML, you just put the text in a P tag. Okay, so I'll have my P like this, and I'll say this is a paragraph. Now notice that when you are writing, every paragraph begins on a new line. So if I get a new paragraph, let's say another paragraph, and I say this is another paragraph, you realize that it will be sent to the next line. Is that okay? So paragraph and headings, they always begin on a new line. Now we move on to the subtext, and for the subtext, most of them don't appear on a new line. They continue from where the last one ended. And the first one that we are going to talk about is the span. So I'll just type span like this, and I'll say this is a span like this. I can have another one called small. The small and the span, there is no observable difference between them. So I'll say this is a small. But you will notice that it will continue from where the span ended. Okay, and if you wish to send it on a new line, you need to bring what we call a break. A break is a self-closing HTML tag. It does not take any content. It can have attributes. All right, so to bring a break, we just say BR like this, and we hit enter, and it will send the other one on a new line. Okay, now the next subtext that we are going to talk about is called a strong. So I'll just type strong, and then say I am strong. We use the strong to display a bold text. All right, then we also have this same bold text. We can use strong, and we can also use another one called B, and this is a bold text like this. All right, so as you can see, it will continue. If I want it to go on a new line, what do? I bring a break. So I'll bring my break here, and it will send it to a new line. As simple as that. Okay, all right, so the next subtext tag that we can use in HTML is called strike. Any content that is written between a strike tag will have a line through it. So let's go ahead and then write strike, and then say there is a strike through like this. And as you can see, the text has a line in it. Now look at how these tags are bright, but this one is dim. The reason why this one is dim is because in HTML5 they are trying to replace the strike tag with an S. So I'll just say S, and I'll still have my strike through. So either you type strike or you type S, there will be a strike through. Now the next one that we are moving on is called quote, and as the name suggests, every content between the code tags will have the inverted commas on it, or the quotation marks around it. All right, and to have a code element, you just type kill, and anytime here you say this is a quote, like this. Okay, and like as usual, because it is a subtext, it will not take a line on its own. And if you want it to have a line on its own, what do? We bring a break. So let me bring my break, and then it will send the code on a new line. All right, now the last text element that I want us to talk about, as a matter of fact, there are so many text elements. The appearance for now doesn't matter, because the browser has default styles for displaying various web elements, and when we start doing CSS, we can change or overwrite all the default styles using our CSS. Okay, and we can make an H6 element even bigger than an H1 element. All right, great. So the last one is called the marquee. And what a marquee does is that it's like a banner, and it is used to display text that scrolls horizontally on its own. Let's think about it this way. Suppose you are watching an interesting program on TV, and you see that there will be some text that will be scrolling from right to left or at the bottom of the screen, and that particular thing is what we call marquee in HTML. And to have a marquee, you just type the marquee like this, and then anything you write in it will be displaying like we see on the television. At the moment, I will leave the behavior for now, and then also the direction, and then I'll type anything here. Okay, so let me say this is a horizontal scrolling text, and as you can see from here, the text is moving from right to left. If I want to change the direction from left to right, I'll just type here right like this, and it will start moving from right to left. All right, now all these things that we have written, you can write them in other elements. So for example, I can have a quote in a paragraph. So let me do something here and say bring my paragraph tag, and I'll say this is a paragraph. This is a paragraph containing quotes. So I'll bring my kill like this, and I'll say quotes. Alright, and as you can see, it is showing here that this is a paragraph containing quotes. So we can insert subtext inside other forms of text. Now, one last thing that I would like to show you before we bring this video to an end is that you cannot have more than one space in an HTML file. So for example, let me say this is awesome. Let me clean the white space there. You see that it has been put together. Okay, if I bring about 7 white space, it still doesn't change anything. It is only one white space that will work. Even if I bring enter and a whole lot of space, it will still not change anything, because that is how the browser has been instructed to display text elements from HTML. Alright, this is where we end it all for today. Next time we meet, we will be looking at images, input, and other interesting web elements. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel before you leave, and if you learn a thing or two, kindly leave a like on this video. I'll see you in the next lesson. Until we meet again, peace out.